They admitted it in their fireside chat. We screwed up, and they screwed up so royally that they said we'll never do a patch like this again. I'm planning to completely overhaul the way how they actually communicate with us and deliver patches. And now in the style of a big backpedal Andy, they're kind of trying to justify some things, but also straight up reverting some of the other stuff. Now watch the whole 2-hour show so you don't have to, and we'll jump straight to the facts that are actually going to happen right away. And then we're going to go over to the promises, maybes for the future, which seem to be somewhat certain. And yes, before we start, Sork and Barbarian buffs are in the work, so rejoice. Now, the biggest thing that's happening is Nightmare Dungeons are getting a huge rework in terms of difficulty, especially when we're looking at higher Nightmare Dungeons from tier 50 onwards. They're going to get tremendously easier. Tier 50 has an HP reduction of the monsters by 20 and damage reduction by 13%. And tier 100 essentially gets a reduction by 82% HP and a damage reduced by 79%. No more one hits, no more completely getting blasted out of life in tier 100 dungeons. Maybe you can take one hit now or two eventually before you die. Their basic idea is that Nightmare Dungeons were too hard, and with the nerfs that happened, it was even harder. And now the new difficulty of a tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon is like a tier 70 used to be. So if you were able to clear tier 70s before with your 100 character, even not with your 100, like you could do it with an 80, 90 character already, you might be able to straight away, this is live right now, clear a tier 100 dungeon. Yes, this is more accessible content. Now you're saying, Pony, but I'm not even remotely level 100. Don't worry about that yet, because the plan is to make leveling faster in the future again. And this is one of the future promises for patch 1.11, which is to be expected roughly in, they said like 2 tops 3 weeks. The leveling from 50 to 100 is too slow in their opinion. They plan to make it a little bit slow, or they have their idea how fast it should be. But it turns out that people kind of get stuck around 70, 80, 85 and then don't want to play anymore. So the plan is to increase that leveling experience that you get from 1 to 50 in around 10 hours. I actually did it now in 8.5 without grinding my nuts off, actually just having fun with Tree of Whispers and other shenanigans. So it's certainly possible to get to 50 in 10 hours, which is nice. Maybe 15 hours if you're being very not efficient. And then to 100 to not take another 30 hours to actually be a faster, more fluent experience. These are not all the nightmare changes though, because something else is going to be happening. And that is they're making the monster density in Nightmare Dungeons higher, and also in Helltide areas. Now, don't expect Champion's Demise, for example, to get 4 times the amount of elites, because Champion's Demise has a lot of deletes. But in general, they want to just higher the number of elites in every single Nightmare Dungeon that is not very high density yet, and the Helltide that you're not riding through areas and you don't meet any elites or normal monsters even. And that's already a step also in making leveling faster, because there's more elites, there's more experience, there's more loot. Kind of everything is better. They want you to have this experience of really going through a dungeon and blasting through elite monsters, and not just like killing hordes of useless trash mobs, because that gets kind of boring. If I go through a dungeon and for 2, 3, 4 minutes, I'm not even seeing a single elite, and some of them are like that. Cultist Refuge, for example, sometimes takes ages to find a single elite. Yeah, not anymore. They'll fix that. Now, a little caveat though, gems are still not materials, and it's still going to be having to wait for season 2. But elixirs now stack up to 99. So the plan is that you're going to make elixirs stack more so they take less space. And also patch 1.11 is promising at least +1 stash tab. Now, I don't know why they would limit it to 1 stash tab plus, because we have all these malignant hearts currently. But at least in 2-3 weeks down the line, you're going to have more space to store things again. That's fantastic. And there's another interesting thing with 1.11, and that is that the respec cost is going down. We know that right now it's just tremendously expensive in the end game, at any point of the game actually, to change your skill. It will currently cost me 4 million to refund all my nodes. And on top of that, every single Paragon point is 40,000, and I have 200 plus Paragon points to refund. Yeah, I like, that is not happening. They want to cut that cost by 40%. Now, I'm going to be honest, just cut that cost by 100%. Respeccing just shouldn't cost money. I mean, you want to introduce, they're saying it, we want build variety. We want people to try out different things. We want you to, you know, experiment. We want to promote new cool builds in the season and to have people engage in the stuff. Yeah, then make it for free. Why do I have to pay if you want me to do it? Why do you make it more difficult for me? Pain. That brings us to the topic of loadouts, because there was a question from the community, when are loadouts coming? And they didn't really give a definite answer, apart from that the UI team is already working on something down the line. That might just be an empty promise, but no time frame, nothing. But the UI team is working on something. So maybe if you come back in 6 months, 7 months, 8, 9 months, you know, there's season 4, we might get loadouts. It's at least a good look in the future, because I'm planning to play Diablo for the next years to come with every season. So it's good to know that potentially something is coming there. The same goes kind of like to leaderboards. Yes, they're working on a leaderboard function, but someday we'll get a leaderboard function. The same goes for aspect imprinting. Currently pulling aspects out and putting aspects in, and you lose your aspects and you can only use them once, and it can get very tedious, especially if you don't have the time to farm like 3 hell tides per day, full-time gamer, content creator, and you're struggling to get the aspects you're looking for. You get a perfect roll on an aspect, but now you get the perfect new item. What you gonna do? You can't rip it out anymore. You have to find another perfect roll, and that might take another week. So something they're working on, or they're at least discussing in the development team to work on rebalancing. And then treasure goblins stink. Yes, treasure goblins stink. Their loot is shit. They're really aware of that, and they should be dropping way more legendaries. One of the biggest things, though, they promised is they'll never do a patch like this again. I talked about it in the intro, but let me iterate on that. What they're going to do is they're going to communicate in the future the patch notes beforehand. Let's say a week before the patch hits, we'll get the patch notes. Or they talk in a fireside chat about the patch notes, so that we can give feedback on some of the stuff being absolutely not feasible. Like if certain nerfs are just too hard, if certain balances don't make sense, I mean, like the whole stuff with level requirement for getting into World Tier 3 and World Tier 4. I beat the Capstone Dungeon at level 40, yet take that out. That's bullshit. We don't need that nerf. That makes absolutely no sense. So they want to communicate that beforehand with us, and they'll never do a patch like this again. That's what they said, and it has me at least a little bit excited for the future, that they learn from their mistakes, and hopefully we'll really not have a disaster like this one more time. Now, if you're interested to level the Necromancer, there is 7 different 1 to 50 builds right there for you, plus also a rundown on how absolutely insane the Malignant Hearts are actually for Necromancer, making him currently the absolute #1 choice to play.